Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I record a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. Wait, record or read? Yeah. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, Twitch, and if you're looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 30 of Breaking Step. Tibs cracked an eye at the open at Don's angry grumbling. The sorcerer scratched out something on the paper. He'd been hoping to rest before running the roofs, but Don's frustration over the diagrams made that difficult. Give it a rest, Tibs said. I'll figure them out, the sorcerer snapped. Not if you rip them up in anger. Don glared at him. Why are you in such a hurry to understand them? The chair scraped as Don turned it to face Tibs. These are power. He waved the pages at Tibs. They're things the guild isn't going to teach me anytime soon. Then you have time. Don stared. This is knowledge, Tibs. The sooner I figure them out, the sooner I acquire it. That puts me ahead of where the guild wants me. I didn't think any of them were about corruption, Tibs said. They aren't. Then how are they going to help you? Don looked through the pages. It's complicated. Somewhere in them, I should be able to find something about how I can draw essence from the items around me. Or from amulets with other elements in them. Yes, there are ways, processes through which I'll be able to tell essences apart. Tibs sat up. How? Don chuckled bitterly. No one's told me that yet, and the little I've read on it hasn't been helpful. But beyond helping me, these can help the team and other runners. He pulled a diagram. This one uses only water, so you could use it right now if I could figure out how it worked. Tibs took it. I thought only sorcerers could use spells. He felt the essence through the paper as he looked at the diagram. The design was more complex than anything he'd tried, with lines of multiple shapes and arcanas between them, as well as around. The essence woven through wasn't water or one you could identify. Spells is just a word, Don said. Ultimately, they're nothing more than complex etching, possibly weaves, but little of what I've read linked the two. Little of what I read link the two. If only needs if it isn't what I read links the two. If it only needs one element, anyone who can wrap their mind around the diagram can use it. Tibs handed it back. The essence in the page, that's part of the problem. One of the reasons it's there is to make the paper more resilient, but another is that there's information in it that a sorcerer can decipher, and that is needed to fully understand the diagram. It isn't made of water, Tibs pointed out, so only sorcerers can use them. Only a sorcerer can decipher one, Don corrected, but Tibs canted his head at the sorcerer's side. Yes, in the end, they're made so only one of us can make use of them. You'd have to learn how to identify other elements to make use of it without help. Alistair says that each class thinks differently, that it's why I can't do what a water archer does or what a water sorcerer can. Don placed the paper back on the table. He's only partially right, I think. But he has a detail wrong. You don't think different from me because I'm a sorcerer and you're a rogue. You think differently because you are you and I'm me. Our upbringing plays a part. And yes, you're more likely to think like another rogue than one of the townsfolk, but that's because you have to do a lot of the same kind of things, which needs you to think in the same way. So how would you help me learn to use one of these spells? The same way you learned from your teacher. You apply yourself to thinking in a new way. We all do it. Some have an easier time of it than others, but by studying and applying ourselves, anyone can change how they think. That's the primary use of the diagram. Get you to put your mind in a new pattern. So that's how I stop my essence from fraying at the edge. The Dawn frowned. Your etchings fray? No, when I shape my essence to do stuff, like coat the floor with water, or he searched for an alternative to his attempt at Kirino's whirlwind. Make a funnel. The edges aren't defined the way Nyla uses her water essence. She's a sorcerer. We do need to be precise in what we do. I have to be precise too. Locks and traps need precision to open. That's a different kind. That's a different type of precision, or not as important to the overall way you learned to think. I can't tell you why you think the way you do. Mind isn't my element, and I doubt even that one of them could. But how much fraying do your etchings have? When done right, none. Don smiled. So you can think in such a way that the fraying goes away if you need it to. Tibs leaned against the wall, considering it. Not everything he made with essence frayed to the same level. His air platform barely had any. Was it because he'd started working on it when he didn't have a lot of essence and had to focus harder to get it to support his weight? Then why can't I recreate what another runner does? Kirino had simply pulled and pushed air essence around, manipulating it the way he did water. The sorcerer shrugged. How important is it that you succeed? How important to them? How much of how they think do you know and understand? If all you have is what you feel of how their essence moves, you're missing a lot of information. It's why etchings exist and spells. They're a representation of the way you need to think about the effect you want to happen. But why do they feel different from when I manipulate water? That's because you're that's pushing that's because you're pushing your will on it without thinking. Dunn considered something. Okay, you've made waves of water, right? Tibbs nodded. How would you turn that into a water jet? Tibbs formed a ball of water in his palm, shaped it into a rod, and willed it across the room. How much effort did that take? Don asked as Tibbs pulled the essence back, drawing the wall. Not a lot. Now, make that something offensive. Get it made to cause damage. I can turn it to ice. No, use water. See if you can get it to where it feels like it will cause the same level of damage as one of your etching. Tibbs made another cylinder, then made it larger. He realized he had a problem. He needed to keep adding water for the jet to be strong enough to cause damage, and he couldn't think of a way to do it. No, he could. He just had to will more of it in. Then all he needed to do was project it toward the target, and the essence slipped his mental control as he tried to hold the shape in place, add essence to it, and prepare it to be launched. Dawn didn't react to water splashing on the floor, and Tibbs absorbed the essence. I'm going to have to work on that, he said, and in time you will be able to get the essence to do what you will it, Dawn said. But why bother? There's an etching that lets you do that easily because it gets your mind to think the correct way to make it happen, especially since you work out how to etch without having to trace it with a point. You noticed, Dunn shrugged. Hard to miss a jet of water saving your life when a runner's making it is also busy holding off his attacker. Don't worry, he added as Tip continued to look at him. I don't think the others realized it. If I hadn't read about it being possible, I'd have figured I was too distracted fighting to see you trace it. When do you think the guild teaches that? Who knows? The sorcerer snorted. I won't be surprised if that's yet another thing they expect us to work out on our own. It's not like it's as useful. It's not like everyone has the same use for it. As a researcher, I doubt I'll need to etch without tracing. The two runners approached warily, accompanied by Jambert. That made 7, and not one complete team who'd agreed to the training. Jekyll and Mez had agreed to help. Don had too, but his instructor had requested his presence, which meant one of the one sorcerer wouldn't get to learn about his class. Hopefully, he'd be open to learn to fight before the next session. Tibbs had to find. Hopefully, he'd be able. Hopefully, he'd be open to learn to fight. Before the next session, Tibbs had to find a sorcerer to take Don's place when he was busy. I'm glad you came, he greeted them. Before we start, I want to make sure you understand what you're agreeing to. The price for the training is your help protecting the town once you are strong enough. That's going to mean patrols and taking on troublemakers. Isn't that what the guards are for? A girl asked. They work for the guild, Tibbs said. I've learned not to trust them to have the town's best interest. I've learned to trust them. I've learned not to trust them to have the town's best interest in mind. The guild lies. 3 of the 7 nodded. If you're okay with the price, we are going to train you so you can survive the dungeon. When I have equipment, you'll get that for your runs so you don't have to bother with what the guild hands out. Do try to bring them back, Tib said, for those cost a lot of coins. Surviving will ensure that happens, Tib stated, and that's what we're going to help you do. The 7 nodded, and so they separated. So, 7 nodded, and they separated them. Comdar stepping out of the shadows to take the sorcerer in hand. That's Roche, Serba said, indicating the man looking over the fabrics at the merchant's booth. He's 3rd under Commander Erdian, so he's careful. I tried to figure out that thing you said he'd have, but I couldn't manage it. Tibbs handed the dog, nuzzling his leg jerky while looking ahead. He had trouble making out details about the man through the busy bazaar crowd. The first day was always like this, as everyone in town wanted something before the merchants ran out. Brogan Roche's hair was curly and dark. He was out of uniform, his tunic in gray-green fabric with lighter trim, while his pants were gray thick fabric, like the kind the traders people. The traders people? The traders people? The traders? Kind of workers. The kind of workers wore. I don't know where he lives, Serba said, and don't ask me to find out. Tibbs nodded and made his way closer. This is good fabric for clothes that will see hard work, the merchant said, unrolling the end of a darker gray fabric for Brogan to rub between his fingers. Tibbs narrowed his senses to get details of the man. There were hints of breaks in his essence, representation of not properly healed injuries, but he was healthy, and he had nothing with a weave on his person. He hadn't expected him to. This was to see who his target was so he could identify him when he worked. And with that done, Tibbs was off to enjoy the bazaar too. Hopefully, one of them would sell sea drops. If not, there was bound to be a candy merchant who could take the coppers he'd accumulated since stepping into marketplace. And that concludes chapter 30 of Breaking Step. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story, it is available for free on Royal Road. If you want to read ahead of Royal Road and support me at the same time, my Patreon is about 20 chapters ahead. And if you're looking to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. on Twitch. The link are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.